I had had chronic pain for a decade up to that point, and just was feeling very limited, and had to live very carefully and within my physical limitations. And so that was when I was starting to suspect maybe there was an emotional root to my pain. I had dinner with a friend who also has like invisible pain and illness and neurological like symptoms, and he said, "Well, you need to read this book, The Mind Body Prescription." That was where I first encountered the idea of rage journaling, because the protocol in the book talks about making lists of everything that you're angry about. And so literally like inventorying everything in the reservoir of rage and all the resentments, all the grief, sadness, things that you've carried. And so I'd never journaled in that way before.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Busy Moms Get It Done. I am your host, Esther Shitu, and I am mom to three beautiful girls and a journalist. And I am so excited for today's episode because I am speaking to Chanlee Sutoyo, and she's the creator and facilitator of Rage on the Page, which is such a way for us to get rid of whatever load that we're carrying. I feel like as moms, we carry so much. We carry so much, and sometimes we need to offload it. And I just love what she does. But also, more than that, I love her journey, and I'm excited for you guys to hear about her journey and how, anything can change at any moment. So, before we get into it, Taylor, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Thank you, Esther. It's an honor to be here.
I would first like for you to kind of tell us who you are. I know a little bit about your story, but like get into it, into your motherhood journey and what that was like.
Yeah, so I am a mom of two girls, Esther and Faith, and they are 7 and almost 10 years old. And it was an, a winding journey to get to motherhood. I was a good girl, like professional government lawyer, very much just focused on my career. And then at the age of 32, had sort of a rude awakening to, okay, you need surgery, you have fibroids,
Mm,
you have an ovarian cyst, ended up losing an ovary actually. And at that point realized, okay, I need to actually think about maybe getting pregnant and having kids earlier than I had planned. And it kicked off a whole health journey for me. And actually, even before this health journey, I was forced to retire from that job as a lawyer due to chronic pain. So I knew I already had a lot of inflammation in my body. A lot of those things, yeah, I went on a health journey, got certified in nutritional therapy to prepare my body for pregnancy, was able to have both children naturally on one ovary, which I'm very proud of. Um, and yeah, so that's how it happened. But I, didn't have. I know we'll probably talk more about identity, but I was feeling lost as well, because I no longer had my career as an attorney, and also knew that I wanted to have some kind of business at that point for the freedom. Thought it was going to be nutrition, but graduated from that program at the same time I gave birth to my first daughter. So
uh,
it was just a very messy start.
no, I mean, I wanted to know, like, first of all, was it the chronic pain that led you to say, okay, I need to go check it out? And that's how they kind of found out the problems?
It was no, the chronic pain was its own. The chronic pain was like neck, shoulders, and arms,
Mm,
and weakness, numbness, and tingling in my forearms and my hands. And so, yeah, I was physically unable to do my job and have a full caseload. That was a hard lesson to learn, that no job is worth my health. And so
mm,
when I when I retired from that job, my only goal was just to recover and to get to a better place with my health. About 2 years into that journey is when the we discovered those fibroids and cysts, or maybe like a year and a half later. And I remember that being a really another that was devastating as well because I was like, I'm just here to take my health seriously. I just want to feel normal again. And um yeah, having my health take that turn where I needed that major abdominal surgery was not what I had planned at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder before then, though, it seems like you weren't thinking about motherhood. You were basically just straight on career. And so like it seems like such a miracle that you were able to go from like having, this problem to like trying to give him birth naturally, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was because I couldn't even function in my daily life. I had to give up cooking, cleaning. I gave up all I used to be really athletic and I gave
Mm,
everything up. I as much as I love journaling too, because I've been journaling since I was 10, I even had to give up handwriting for a period of time. I had to use voice dictation to to write my own journal entries. That was a very unnatural thing for me. And and yeah, it was I didn't believe either. I didn't know either that I could conceive naturally until I educated myself about cycles and fertility and everything, and we started trying to time and use ovulation sticks and all of that. And I remember the first time I tested pregnant, I was like so happy, and my first thought was I'm normal. So that was my first thought. And knowing it was on one ovary, right?
mm,
And the surgeon was pretty like, "Oh, whatever, that's why we have two. You're fine." Right? But in my mind it was like half my eggs are gone. So my first thought was I'm normal, but then that first pregnancy ended up being a miscarriage at around 6 weeks. And so that was another on the one hand relief that I could conceive naturally, but on the other hand, grieving the loss of this potential life as well.
so miraculously underwent over it. And I think it's a miracle because I definitely know that I don't think it's as easy to get pregnant as many of us make it to be. We think it's easy, but it's definitely a hard process and all divine. But you had two children, um, and how did your dynamic, your help shift as you had your first and then as you had your second? How did everything kind of change for you?
With my health.
Yes.
So and definitely, so I had the miscarriage, and then the next time I got pregnant, it turned out to be Esther. But of course, you're a lot more careful if you've had a miscarriage with not wanting it to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just holding both feelings in my hands, right? Like on the one hand, being so grateful and empowered that I was getting to be a mom, but on the other hand, all of the anxieties and the insecurities you have as a first time mom too. So, and um, it had to be a planned C-section. I was told after I had my fibroids and cyst surgery that from now on, if I ever had kids, that they would have to be by C-section. And so I felt a little bit of a loss of that choice as well because I was trying to be more on the natural side too. But I made the best of it and committed to breastfeeding, and that was a whole hard journey with my first. She wouldn't latch, and I remember
Oh,
just
no.
being so committed that we drove like 2 hours to get her to go to a specific doctor to get her tongue tie release.
Mm,
And she was finally able to latch and be fully breastfed. I think it was like day 30 or 31 of her life. That was like finally.
my goodness.
Well, that was but I'm really glad that I remember holding her close right before, we finally found our rhythm and she latched and was being able to, actually get fed and everything. I remember holding her close and just whispering, "We can do this," to her. And I think that that really is is true with our relationship even now, I think.
Mhm,
And then, yeah, I remember I wanted her to have a sister.
mhm,
I wanted her to have a sibling. And so before I really felt ready, we tried and got pregnant with her younger sister, Faith. And it was really different the second time, um, in terms of being prepared and feeling more prepared for the C-section as well. Um, and having the same OB surgeon who he knew about the complications that I had with the first C-section because of the previous surgery. There was a lot of scar tissue and things, so that C-section took longer. Um, so with the second time around, everything went more smoothly, and we were actually able to do like skin to skin in the OR, which was something I specifically requested, and it was not a common thing at that time, so I had to fight
mhm.
like pretty hard for that. Luckily, I found a nurse at the hospital who um supported me in doing that. So, yeah, I remember her saying like, I really think that you're helping us to turn the corner in this hospital with regard to this practice."
I love that imagery of you fighting for your daughter because, as we discussed up like you also have had to fight for her a lot. So, can you describe the process? You found out that your daughter, cannot cannot hear. Can you describe the process of that?
Yeah, so this is my younger daughter, Faith, was always a very like, everything was, like, easier with her. Like, she latched right away after birth, like, was breastfed, and was a easy to please baby, like, was not very demanding. And then when she was 1, she got her first ear infection, and there was just fluid on and off in her middle ear. So, but even after, decided to get tubes, put in, thinking, "Okay, this is going to help," because we were already noticing that she was speech delayed by 18 months, and we thought that the ear tubes were going to solve that. But then her speech did not dramatically improve. So she was already, starting to receive speech therapy from the regional center, and then, it was about, like, a 6-month process of, "Okay, let's take her and get her hearing tested." Um, the audiologist they kinda started to suspect something, but they just said, "Come back and get retested." So it was like this there was sort of like this dread of like, what's wrong with my child, like not and denial and not wanting her to be diagnosed with hearing loss. But then I remember going to a children's hospital and getting like a definitive test that then the audiologist said looks like there are changes with her hearing. And I just remember this was during COVID. This was during the pandemic, so I didn't have my husband's support or anything. I had to go to this appointment by myself with um, my daughter, who was, let's see, she was 28 months at that time. And and getting the diagnosis was just so devastating. I remember sitting there with all the questions that just started racing through my mind of like, is she going to be okay? Is she ever going to find a partner in her life? Can she ever like turn her back on the ocean? Like, can she drive a car? Like all these questions started coming up. And the audiologist just was like, "Oh yeah, it's not anything you did." Because I immediately started feeling mom guilt and mom shame. So there's not anything you did, and um, kid, she'll need hearing aids like for the rest of her life. And with the right support, all these kids eventually get to where they need to go. And little did I know it was the start of like a very long journey to close the gap of her speech and language, because for the first 2 years of her life, her brain was not getting like it did not have access to the speech and language that she needed for her brain to develop that language. So um, that was a neurological emergency, and that for that to happen in like October, November of 2020, when getting getting this kind of care, there were a lot of barriers because of the pandemic that made it all the more stressful. So I remember just feeling super devastated, feeling like it was my fault, but at the same time, my anxiety it kicked me into action as well. So right away, I started researching because that's what I do, and looking for support and intervention for her.
What I loved about that story, I feel like you were like, "Oh, I feel mom guilt," but I also feel like, part of it is like having the ear infection kind of led you to figure out, "Oh, there's something wrong here," right? Because you started off, and I think I might have told you when we spoke, but like when you talk about your second daughter, it's like you've always had to fight from the very beginning, even like fighting to be able to hold her, and fighting for her to get to the level that she needed to get to. And can you just discuss what that process was like for you and kind of how it led to your business, or, your what you're doing now, reaching the page?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I think from my own health journey with the chronic pain, I had learned to become a stronger advocate for myself with doctors. And so that definitely transferred to Faith's journey with hearing loss, and making sure that she was getting all of the therapies that she needed. I remember at one point it was like 10 hours of Zoom calls a week, because imagine doing speech therapy and OT like over Zoom. So that was my life for several months. When things started opening back up, um, I was able to get her into like a special preschool, and just um, the John Tracy Center. You know, they're really great at teaching like auditory oral. I didn't want her to have to learn sign language, so she, really it was like a listening first approach always.
Mm.
But that was a choice I had to make, to, get her placed not placed, but that was a choice we had to make to send her to this preschool. Um, and so, it was 2 years of a lot of, like, sacrifices in terms of having to commute from our home into Los Angeles for the school, and, um, I think that it's one of those decisions that you don't know until years later whether you made the right decision. And now, she's in 1st grade and about to enter 2nd grade, um, and now it's really feeling like those decisions we made, um, getting her the best hearing aids, getting them as quickly as possible, getting her into, um, getting her into, like, all the therapies. I mean, when she was little, including, like, she even had horse therapy. She would ride on a horse and get physical therapy, hippotherapy that way. Because when you have hearing loss, you also have it's an inner ear thing, your whole vestibular system is affected, so she had sensory integration issues. So it was just like, yeah, it really felt like our life revolved around this for, like, 3 years, for sure. Um, now it's really we were able to, with all the therapies, close the gap enough for her to be able to mainstream and go to public school. And so now, she's finishing up her 3rd year in public school with her IEP, with all the accommodations, but, you know, even just the IEP, like, that's a whole 'nother realm of, like, advocacy. So it feels like every inch gained with her has been hard earned, hard fought. Um, and people tell me all the time, "She's so lucky to have a mom like you."
She
And for me,
is.
is there any other way to be? Is there any oth like, even just with my first daughter with the breastfeeding and everything, like, that's just, how I am. And so yeah, Um, Definitely had to make these choices in faith, right? Because I think it's very appropriate that we named her that because we chose that name for her before we knew that she was going to have a lifelong permanent disability, like hearing loss. Like she's always going to have to work harder than everyone else. Hearing aids are not really like glasses. You don't just put them on and instantly you can hear and everything
Yeah.
because hearing and listening is something that kids actually have to learn. And typical hearing kids, it just happens automatically and naturally being around people talking, overhearing, and incidental learning. Kids with hearing loss have to work that much harder because of background noise, distance, reverberation. Even if you put hearing aids on, their hearing will never be 100% normal, quote. And so that's the grief journey that I've been on and continue to be on for her because I wanted a better, I want, I, that, yeah, her life was not what I thought it was going to be from when she was born. And so definitely had to learn a lot of resilience, tenacity, using my voice and asking for things. And even when it was uncomfortable, working through all of that um, and trying to balance it with my own self care and my health. And it's definitely not easy. So, yes, how does it transfer to this business? And definitely my journey with the government trial attorney job and um, being forced to give up my law career and everything definitely tied into the this business. So before we knew she had hearing loss, she was I had had chronic pain for a decade up to that point, and just was feeling very limited and had to live very carefully and within my physical limitations. And so that was when I was starting to suspect maybe there was an emotional root to my pain. I um, had dinner with a friend who also has like invisible pain and illness and neurological like symptoms, and he said, "Well, you need to read this book, The Mind Body Prescription." That was where I first encountered the idea of rage journaling, um, because the protocol in the book talks about making lists of everything that you're angry about. And so literally like inventorying everything in the reservoir of rage and all the resentments, all the grief, sadness, things that you've carried. And so I'd never journaled in that way before, even though I had journaled all of my life up until then. And I remember setting aside. So I had a three-year-old and like an under 1 year old at that point. I remember telling my husband to like drive them out of the house to my parents' house
Typical.
just so I could have like a couple hours to journal in this way. But I remember just being super excited and like I wanted to commit time to journaling, rage journaling intentionally. Because yeah,
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, I think that this, because you were talking about, okay, just writing down everything that is like you feel angry about. Is that really what it is? Just writing it out, or is there something more in depth to it?
yeah. The part that is makes it different from typical journaling is that you're giving yourself permission to tell the whole truth and to be
Mm,
honest in your journal and on the page. And so that's what made it different from um, sort of more of the chronicling type of journaling that I did in the past. And so it's and also I literally started out writing a list and then it
mm.
turned into paragraphs and then it turned into essays and it turned into past and present. And so and you're encouraged to go back into like childhood and to face the traumas, and it's very much about it's because your subconscious mind thinks that your repressed rage is too scary for the conscious mind, and your subconscious mind would rather produce pain signals in your physical body than allow you to face that rage. Once I accepted that premise of, oh, maybe that explains my chronic pain because all the physical reasons had been ruled out. And I had only been doing physical treatments for 10 years, which only would work temporarily. Um, though my symptoms would always flare up again. Once I accepted that premise, okay, it's my subconscious mind, then um, that's how the rage journaling was so effective because it's about bringing bringing all the repressed thoughts and feelings in that were in the subconscious up to the surface and letting them exposing them to the light of day basically, and trusting that your conscious mind is strong enough to be able to face these feelings and then deal with them.
I wa I I love it because I think about it as an idea of you kind of releasing, right?
Mhm.
And do you think it only works or it's only effective? I wouldn't use the word work. It's effective when you release it and you're not stewing over it. Because I can think about someone who's like, I'm really, really angry about this. And then they write about it one day and then they keep writing about it and it becomes like a chip on their shoulder instead of something where they write it all, go in depth into it, but it's a therapeutic method, right? And then walk away from it and like, okay, this is done, and walk away or not stew over it, not
Yeah,
ponder over it to the point where you're back in that situation again.
yeah, for sure. It's very cathartic. I mean, journaling in general is just doing it normally. Normal kind of journaling is therapeutic, but doing it in this way with giving yourself permission to tell the full truth and be real is life changing. Because for me, like even just within a couple days, I remember already feeling better with my pain.
Hmm.
And after a couple weeks, I was able to actually put weight on my wrists in a yoga class and not have pain afterward and being just blown away by that. And then by a couple weeks, by like I forget when, but within the 4 weeks that I had dedicated to doing the rage journaling, going from feeling like I couldn't lift a gallon of milk without hurting and straining myself to being able to like take Faith, who was a heavy baby at that point, take her out by myself. I could never go out by myself before that because I was like, I need my husband to help me lift the stroller and the car seat and everything. But I remember going on an outing by myself with her, um, and lifting the stroller out of the trunk myself, popping it open, lifting her in the car seat, putting it on the stroller, and then walking around and then going home and feeling like okay. And because um, the rage journaling and that protocol, it really teaches you not to be afraid of your pain and to resume activities. And so, I mean, I still have chronic pain even now, but like I'm not 100% pain free, but I am free
Hmm.
from pain. Yeah, free from the fear of the pain. It no longer like rules my life the way it did before.
Yeah, I get
Um,
that. I think it's more like, before this thing hinders me from everything that I need to do in my daily life. And now it's like, I can do this. I might feel a little pain, but I know that like, it's okay. I can do it, so to speak. So how did you decide to take this before we talk about that, one of the things that you mentioned when we talked online is kind of like the full circle of like you're fighting for your child, but also it speaks to when you had your legal job where you felt like you had no voice. And so like there's that full circle moment, for you from not having a voice in your job, but also like having to use your voice to fight for your child and not putting your voice on paper. Can you dive a little bit into that?
yeah, I love how you put that. It really is full circle. With like all of the lessons, nothing is wasted, right, in our experience as as women. And so I all of the hard things I'd gone through up till the point of launching my business last year, um, definitely the resilience and the strength that you have to develop when you're when you're learning to use your voice in all the different contexts. Um, the, my job with doctors, and then now with school districts, or just anybody who anyone who interacts with faith, um, where they need to be aware and educated about like hearing loss and difference and best practices for communication. All of those things, I think, really do translate into entrepreneurship as well. And so yeah, I didn't realize that when I decided I wanted to start a business around journaling. I didn't realize how much all those lessons from motherhood were going to help me. And that it's been amazing being able to connect it back to, well, if I've survived all those things, and if I've been able to get through all of those things, then like when I feel uncomfortable or I face difficulties in building my business, or it's really my own resistance too, or in the imposter syndrome that happens. One of the things that helps me is realizing, well, I've survived all of that, like, so I can do this as well.
No. I have to ask how you decided to transition from this is something that I'm just doing, right? To this is something that I think could help others and make it into a business.
Yeah, I so even after the moment I decided, okay, it's it's time to, well, there was a moment, end of 2024, when it was like a lightning bolt, like this new business should be around. And I up in that point, it was just fits and starts up to that point of, okay, should I go back to law? Or, okay, no, I don't want to do that. Should I, um, what unfair advantage or expertise or authority could I own, right? And I'd never thought about journaling up until that point. But then, yeah, it was like a lightning bolt one night, and started out thinking I was going to be a creator on YouTube and make videos about journaling and things. And then, um, quickly realized I need support. So I joined a mastermind, and that mastermind had a lot of coaches. And I remember thinking, no, I'm not a coach. Like, I couldn't picture myself doing that.
Yeah.
Then, after working on what could be my offer for about 6 months, kind of spinning my wheels around, even just the base, the basic things around entrepreneurship too. Like up until that point, I was just learning to carve out time. I didn't even have workspace in my own home yet. I would put, like, I was working on my dining table, and then I have to put everything away every day
Yeah.
and then find that stuff again and put it back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had literally had to carve out time and space to work on this business. And then, yeah, just thinking about how can I use journaling as a tool and teach it as a tool for self-improvement, but how do I make it a painkiller and not just a vitamin? Those are the
I love that. That's a good that's a good quote right there. How do I make it a painkiller and not a
yeah.
vitamin? Love it.
Well, it took months of like of thinking about this and
Yeah.
constantly and all the times I tried to start a blog in the past, the nutrition business, all these things never got off the ground because I never got out of learning mode. I never got out of prep mode. But this was the first time I was finally able to break out of that prep mode because, um, yeah, I remember. So what happened was the moment I finally decided, okay, it's going to be Rage on the Page, was telling my story, for the first time to rooms of other women entrepreneurs. And so it was, the story that I told you just now about, overcoming the chronic pain with the rage
Yeah.
journaling and
Yeah.
not realizing the power that was in my own story. But when I started using my voice to actually tell this story, the first time I told her, I remember I was at a round table of other entrepreneurs, and everybody was so moved. And I remember I think they actually clapped for me, and they were like, "Wow, that's an amazing story. Keep telling it." That was the moment that I settled on, okay, it's going to be rage journaling, not just any kind of journaling, but rage journaling. And then a couple months later, I was invited to actually facilitate my first rage journaling workshop. And and that was when the live group cohort idea really started to come into being. Yeah.
Um, I wonder if you have moms that are listening to this and they're thinking about like, I want to start a business because, have it's hard to find what exactly should are people willing to pay for. And what I've seen is with different women that I've spoken to, different moms, a lot of times it's like, are you already doing? Do you think that's really the first step? Is like, what are you already doing that's not helping you only, but that you think that can help other people? Or do you think there's another step that they need to take?
I think it's definitely helping a prior version of yourself. Because we often hear that too, right? Like people found women founders, they create businesses around what they wish they had,
Mm,
a prior version of themselves. I think that you already have everything inside you that you need to start a business and to have an offer that people will pay for. And so it's really about accessing, it's not about like more learning or certifications or anything. It's about really accessing and owning your own authority that you already have. And I mean, I think journaling, yeah, and writing down like what am I good at?
mhm.
Uh, yeah.
In what ways have you found yourself having to kind of, because we're talking about voice, and like I said, even what I had a thought before, but even in terms of like as you're growing a business, you're still kind of having to use your voice to create a space for yourself, right? You're still kind of having to be like, I need to be able to focus on this because for a long time you were advocating for your daughter, and now you're kind of advocating for yourself to like, I need to be able to grow this thing, to be able to stretch this thing. What are other ways you've had to use your voice? And also, what are some of the ways you've kind of had to overcome the challenges when you felt like shy or felt like you couldn't, be who you need to be?
Yeah. And it's a continual journey that I'm still on. I mean, every from even just telling my story, that was
Mm,
a big first step for me. Being able to turn this story of a chapter of my life that I was really ashamed of, actually, having the chronic pain and the disability, and then giving up my career and identity.
yeah.
That was something that I was ashamed of, but it was that moment of telling this story that I was ashamed of, but then being witnessed by a room full of women who not only appreciated my story, but were like celebrating it.
Yeah.
And that feeling of belonging and acceptance is the one that I wanted realized that I wanted to give my clients,
Mm,
um, my future clients. I didn't have clients at that point. And also, yeah, the imposter syndrome always rears its head. And so, right before the moment of sharing what I do with someone new that I meet, or raising my hand to like be interviewed on this podcast, for example, or even
which I'm
uh,
grateful for.
yeah, or even the conversations with potential clients or partners, like feeling nauseous right before I pitch. Like those are things that I've had to work on and to overcome. Still get nervous, right? And but so I think you're right. Like I'm still fighting for this business too. Every day I have to fight and work past my own resistance. So the there's, you know, self-sabotage that I have to work through too constantly. Um, and what was the second part of your question?
Well, I think that you kind of answered it because I was like, in what ways have the challenges you've had? What other challenges you've had in order to like?
Yeah, a huge one is, yeah, the self-sabotage, not having good boundaries with myself around Um, not just carving out the time. Okay, now I have maybe now I have like the time to work on my business, the 15 to 20 hours a week, right? But then I'm still sleeping too late. And so there's the boundary with my self-care and things. And then there's the challenge of sometimes, I mean, to be like totally honest, sometimes I feel resentment that I have to
Mm,
stop my work day because I have to go pick up my kids now, or,
yeah.
I still have to take Faith to her therapy appointment like once a week and things like that. And so the shifting gears and switching from business owner and CEO to like now mom and having to switch back and forth, um, sometimes I resist that as well.
Do you I was actually gonna go and ask you about that balance because the dynamics has shifted from, like, you're a mom that has 2 kids, sorry, I have the 3 kids. You have 2 kids. You're a mom with 2 kids, and now you're a mom with 2 kids trying to grow a business. What has that been like? How have you had to kind of orient your own routine? Obviously, you're still helping your daughter pay. So how have you had to do both or balance both or trade off between one or the other?
It's been definitely a transition. It's been an adjustment, because I was the primary caregiver for my
Mhm.
kids. I was also the primary cook in the in the home, and the mental load and the cognitive load that they talk about for moms and wives, that's definitely true for me as well. And so, my husband, who's very supportive and very loving, also an entrepreneur, he understands the growing pains I'm going through right now.
Mhm.
Um, so he's like, he understands why I'm so passionate as well, obviously,
Mm.
having watched me and been there for me
Witness it.
throughout the
Yeah.
journey. I mean, we're gonna be celebrating 20 years of marriage later this
Oh my
week.
goodness, congratulations.
Thank
Woohoo.
Yeah, so he but, it's definitely been a journey with him having to pick up the slack and learn to cook a bit and be cooking more and doing the things that I used to do. And so definitely, we've had our arguments because it's a tough there's only yeah, it's tough. We don't have a lot of help, right? And I remember even just hiring a house cleaner to come once a month was like this huge deal. And um and learning to delegate and simplify and eliminate things, when it comes to household has been pretty hard too. So yeah, it's definitely like I'm in the messy middle, right? And it's a
Mm.
learning process. And luckily my husband is supportive. Yeah.
When you speak of the clients that you've had so far, what would you say are some of the moms, and what would you say are some of the main things that why are moms probably the best to kind of start this process of journaling and even rate journaling?
Yeah, I mean, as moms, we have to hold it together for our kids, right? And be the model of because so much more is caught than taught, right? Like our kids emulate us. And so we have to really carry a lot and hold so much in, especially if you are the parent of a child with special needs. There's even more there. So everything is more intensified with that, right? And there's just the mental load increases when you have a child with a disability. So much invisible labor that people don't realize. So there's definitely our unconscious, our brains are here to keep us alive, right? And our brains are like wired to keep us safe and just keep us going. And so there's so much stored in our subconscious that we don't realize. And I think it's really important to have some kind of internal practice, whether it's journaling or a lot of people do, right, like yoga, meditation, things, mind body practices. But obviously, um, I like journaling the best because the act of writing and the connection between our brain and our the mind hand connection is so strong. And so when we write, it instantly bypasses performance. It instantly is a window to our subconscious. People are constantly surprised by what they write and what comes out on the page. But our subconscious helps move our thoughts out through the pen, and what you really think, and the truth will come out on the page faster than your inner critic can censor.
Mm.
So for so I definitely think that, journaling, it doesn't have to be for like 1 or 2 hours a day. Like when I was doing it for rage journaling, my typical normal practice now is a few minutes in the morning and then
Mm.
at as well. But something I hear a lot is people think that they need to have perfect conditions for journaling, and it needs to be really quiet with a cup of tea, and like, you've got all
The
this
sun
time.
needs to be out. A bright and sunny day.
Yeah, and I think you don't need that at all. Like, you could be in the bathroom, you could be in your car. It could just be on the notes app on your phone, or, you could have an actual journal, but like it doesn't have to be a pretty journal. Journaling does not have to be pretty or cute or perfect at all. You just have to be willing to be honest and trust that your subconscious is not going to reveal what you can't handle in that moment. I think a lot of people are afraid of, some people are turned off by the word rage too. They're kind of afraid of like going there. But I think what I would say is trust that your mind knows.
I think part of it too, especially when it comes with the pain thing, is as women, we owe so much. And one of the things that I've always been afraid of, and I'm praying to God this never happens, is that we don't understand that some of the pain that we hold comes back in a
Mm,
physical form. And if you are able to release that as you're talking, I'm like, I want to do that, but I kind of want to be like, I want to, do it and be like, as a Christian, be like, this is the way God has fixed it. And
mhm.
it's like we hold it. And so when you release it, you're not putting that pain in your subconscious and it's not going to transform later on, I think one of the fun facts that you're talking about, speaking about uh, children catch more than they thought, is that your daughter has now started journaling. How is that process? How did you kind of introduce her to that?
My daughter journaling, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, my older daughter, Esther, is very, she's one of those like smart kids that worry a lot. So I introduced her to journaling as a way to relieve that pressure that we all feel,
Hmm.
and stuff, just like you were just saying. Because journaling, rage journaling in particular, can be that valve to release the pressure. If you think of our bodies as pressure cookers, and so she started journaling even younger than I did, at the age of 8. I started when I was 10, and it and I also, same thing that my mom told me. I was like, I'm never gonna read your journal. It's yours. I respect your privacy. So that I do see her writing in it, and she uses it to talk about her friend dramas. She uses it to write about like days that she wants to remember, fun memories. And I think that it's definitely a skill that I want her to develop, and so that it can become a superpower, just like it has for me, in every chapter of her life going forward.
Well, thank you, Jaylee. I do not want to take up much of your time. We are kind of like 2 minutes to time here. But
Yeah.
thank you. How can people reach out if they are interested? I know you have a cohort that I think you said started or is about to close. Is there another one that people can reach out to for if they really want to join and learn more about this?
Definitely. They can find me on LinkedIn. So you can search for my name, Chanlee Sutoyo. But also, I have a website as well. It's Rage on the dot page. You can go there and learn more about my journaling circles and what goes on in them, and see some of the amazing breakthroughs from my client testimonials as well. And I, if This is for, rage on the page is for the high functioning woman, the overachievers,
The busy
self
moms.
yeah, moms, and also people who hold a lot in, the self silencers, right? To be able to safely release rage and pressure onto the page, reclaim their voice, and really come home to themselves. So
Thank
I
you.
would
I
love
would say
to, yeah, I would
go
love to
ahead,
talk to.
sorry. Yeah, I would say your story is, I think, part of the reason that it's taken off is that it's such an amazing story. It's an amazing story of like, not just stayed in that state of like, oh, I don't have a voice, or but you just allowed it to like blossom. So thank you so much for sharing it with me and for sharing it with my audience. I really appreciate it. And to everyone who listened, please feel free to check out Chanlee on LinkedIn and to check out Rate on the page. Thank you, and we will see you next time on Busy Moms Get It Done.
Thank you. Thank you, Esther.